Let me throw a stat at you straight away. And I want you to really sit with this stat for a minute and just let it soak in. Motorcyclists make up just around 1 to 2% of road traffic here in the UK. Yet year after year, they account for roughly 20% of road deaths. Not injuries, deaths. Per mile travelled, a motorcyclist is dozens of times more likely to be killed or seriously injured than someone in a car. Those numbers are used consistently to justify why the UK motorcycle licence system is so complicated, so expensive, and so restrictive. And on the surface, that makes so much sense. But today, I want to ask a much harder question. Are we actually training the right people to make the roads safer? Because what if a big chunk of motorcycling risks didn't come from the riders themselves, but it came from the people around them? Now, this week's video is sponsored by the team at Beeline with the Beeline Moto 2. I've been using the Moto 2 for a little while now. It's a compact, weatherproof motorcycle navigation device that gives you very clear, simple, turn-by-turn directions. It pairs with your phone, plans the route in the app, and gives you clear directions and guidance from the device itself. It's easy to use, even with gloves on, and the battery life is seriously solid, even for a full day's riding. It's properly built for bikes too. It's vibration resistant, rainproof, and you can actually read the screen even in glaring sunlight. And if you want to find out more about this device or even buy one for yourself, well, there's an affiliate link in the description below. Buying through that link really does help support my channel, helps me create this free to view content for yourselves on a weekly basis, and it costs you not a penny more. Anyway, that's enough of me advertising. Let's jump into the video and let's start by unboxing those scary statistics. So let's get the headline figures out of the way first. According to the Department for Transport, motorcyclists account for around 12 to 13% of road casualties, and they make up around 20% of road fatalities here in Great Britain. Measured per billion vehicle miles travelled, motorcyclists are around 28 to 50 times more likely to be killed than car occupants, depending on the year and the data set that you're looking at. Now, all of that sounds absolutely horrific, and that's because it is. It's also painting an incomplete picture, though. These figures only tell us how bad the outcomes are, not why those outcomes are happening. This is where exposure versus vulnerability matters, because motorcyclists don't have seatbelts, we don't have airbags, we don't have crumple zones or side impact protection. So when a collision happens, even at relatively low speeds, the severity is automatically much higher. A crash that might have meant a bent bumper or a scratch or a scuff on a car can be life-changing on a bike, and that alone inflates fatality statistics. So the first big takeaway from this video is that high death rates don't automatically mean motorcyclists are causing more accidents. It just means that when a motorcyclist's involved in an accident, it's more likely to be serious, or they're more likely to get seriously hurt when the accident does happen, and there's a distinct difference there. When you look at how the Department for Transport records accident causation, things start to get a bit more interesting. So when police attend a road traffic collision, they record something called contributory factors. These are not legal findings, but they are observations made at the scene. They're based on evidence, statement, and professional judgments, and they're often recorded quite quickly and under quite a lot of pressure. Multiple contributory factors can be assigned to one collision, be that with multiple vehicles or even both parties involved getting the same contributory factors allocated to their involvement in the accident. And this matters because contributory factors are often treated online as they're like court verdicts. We see it all the time in the comment sections of videos on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube where keyboard warriors will sit there and explain how they could have avoided the accident or how it was completely one individual's fault and there's no grey area within their assessment. But they're not court verdicts at all. They're simply the facts as noted by those who were there at the time. So if we keep looking at accident data on the thread of motorbikes here, a phrase that comes up over and over and over again in the contributory factors relating to accidents is failed to look properly. It's usually the most common contributory factor in collisions involving motorcycles, and it gets interpreted as the driver didn't look for the bike. And sometimes that's true, but it's also worth knowing that the same factor is also regularly applied to motorcyclists and cyclists and even pedestrians in just as many cases as it is applied to the cars. It generally just means that someone didn't see another road user, or that someone saw them but just misjudged the speed or distance or failed to anticipate a developing hazard. This is known as looked but failed to see, and it's a cognitive failure, not just a visual one. So in other words, the bike can be visible to the road user, but not processed as a threat or a hazard. And this is unfortunately not something that any amount of rider training alone can fix. And that brings me to the main point of this entire video. In the majority of fatal and serious motorcycle collisions involving more than one vehicle, the other vehicle is 9 times out of 10 usually a car. And that doesn't mean that cars are always at fault, but it does mean that motorcyclists are very often being injured or killed in interactions with other road users, not in isolation. Single vehicle motorcycle crashes absolutely do exist, and rider skill matters hugely there. But the most severe outcomes disproportionately happen when a heavier vehicle, like a car, interacts with someone on a lighter vehicle, an unprotected vehicle, e.g. a motorbike. And this is where the hard limit of rider training starts to show its main weaknesses. UK motorcyclists already undergo compulsory basic training, a theory test, a Module 1 off-road skills test, a Module 2 on-road test, and various age-restricted licenses and progression paths to eventually get to the point where they have a full license. During all of this, riders are trained to expect the absolute worst, expect mistakes from others, position defensively, anticipate junction risk, assume that you're invisible, and pretend that absolutely everyone on the road wants to cause us harm. But there is a ceiling to how much responsibility can be placed on the most vulnerable road users. You cannot train someone to avoid being pulled out on a blind junction, or defy mass and momentum when someone decides they're going to smidsy you at that junction or that roundabout. At some point, safety becomes a shared responsibility. So with that in mind, when you compare all of that rider training with what your regular car driver receives, most UK car drivers do a theory test and then pass one practical test, receive limited vulnerable road user education, and never get reassessed, and may never consciously learn how to spot motorcyclists properly. Hazard perception tests do exist, but they're often quite broad, short, and often treated as a box-ticking exercise, and all of that does create this serious imbalance. The people with the greatest mass and the greatest kinetic energy, and thus the greatest capacity to cause harm, receive the least ongoing training. Meanwhile, the most vulnerable road users are trained to compensate for that. So, would better driver training save riders' lives, do we think? Well, if we take a look at the international research like the Hertz report and the MAID study, they consistently found that the majority of multi-vehicle motorcycle crashes involved another vehicle, and that vehicle often violated the rider's right of way. And that failure of perception was a dominant factor in the collision. So better driver training could realistically include motorcycle-specific hazard perception clips, mandatory refreshers at key age milestones, tests that put stronger emphasis on junction scanning, and even education around speed misjudgment. And here's the key point. This wouldn't just help motorcyclists. It would also benefit cyclists, pedestrians, horse riders, and any other vulnerable road users. When a system responds to high casualty rates by increasing costs, adding barriers, and tightening access, but focuses almost exclusively on the most vulnerable groups, you have to ask yourself, is the balance right? This doesn't mean riders shouldn't be trained. We absolutely should be taught exactly what we're being taught, how to be safe on the roads and how to mitigate all of those dangers. But safety works better when responsibility scales with the potential harm. We all know motorcycling is risky, and no amount of these videos and analysing statistics changes that. But not all of that risk originates with the rider. A safe system doesn't come from asking motorcyclists to be perfect. It comes from better rider training and better driver awareness and shared responsibility. And a license system that reflects real-world risk, not just statistics taken at face value, is going to better save more people out on the road. If we genuinely want fewer riders to be hurt and killed on our UK roads, we need to stop asking only one group to carry the burden. Now, if you've made it this far in the video, I really do appreciate it. Please do like the video and let me know in the comments, do you think the balance is right? Or are we training the wrong group of people? You can also now head over here to check out last week's video where I went through the planned legislation changes to the UK motorcycle license system. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel by clicking my face over here if you've not already done so. And hopefully I get to see you all next Sunday in my next video. For the meantime, please do ride safe.